Hey guys, it's Nathan from Arms of Ilum, and today we're going to take a look at this new Black Series Darth Vader helmet from Hasbro. Some of you guys may not be familiar with the Black Series, but it's basically Hasbro's line of kind of quasi-collector, maybe not even quasi, but full-on collectors, figurines, prop replicas, if you can call them that, kind of a loose term, and assorted other Star Wars related goodies that is kind of the higher end product as far as the toys go for the Star Wars lineup. This was announced several months ago, actually. Back last fall, I think, was the first time we started to hear about this Darth Vader helmet, and it follows on the footsteps of some pretty popular offerings. If you guys may remember, the Kylo Ren helmet with the voice changer was the first one to kind of break into this area. It was the first Black Series helmet that Hasbro brought to us. They then followed that up with an even more popular Stormtrooper helmet, which was a very good replica of the Stormtrooper bucket that we saw in Rogue One. Then after that, we got the Poe Dameron helmet, which I don't actually own. Poe's not one of my favorite characters, and I don't think it was quite as popular as the Stormtrooper or the Kylo Ren. But regardless, so far Hasbro has really hit the mark on these Black Series helmets. They've been pretty accurate especially for the price. Just really great display pieces that have a little bit of added play value as well. As you can see here, this thing came in a massive box. Actually, to be quite honest, it's about the same size, I believe, as the previous Black Series offerings, but nevertheless, it is a big piece. They certainly did not short us, at least not too much, in terms of size for this Darth Vader helmet. So, now that we've got it all out here, let's go ahead and take a closer look. So when you first take this Vader helmet out of the box, you'll notice that it comes in 4 main pieces, or 5 if you count this little stand here. Starting off with the largest, this is the dome. Kind of hard to get into the photo here, or in the frame here, but it's a very large dome, actually a bit undersized as far as the actual prop goes. We'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. One of the selling points, and probably actually the main selling point, aside from some of the electronic features and such, is the fact that this Vader helmet is a full-on reveal helmet. And actually, that's pretty rare as far as Darth Vader prop replicas go. There are some custom made Vaders that some folks in the prop community have put together on their own, but when it comes to a reveal like this, we haven't seen something like this, so it's really cool that Hasbro has been able to bring that to us. And as you see, the detailing is quite good. I went back as soon as I got this helmet and watched especially the scenes from Return of the Jedi and then also from Revenge of the Sith, and I'll be honest with you, that yes, there are some coloration misses here, and there are some details that might be missing, but overall, they really did capture the spirit of this reveal. These reveal details. So you've got the mask here. That's the second largest piece and easily the most recognizable component of it outside of the dome. You've then got the jaw piece and a back collar. Now all these fit together to make this thing wearable, but before we do that, I do want to show you guys another close-up, and I might roll in some photo here as well of those reveal details. As you can see, quite good. I mean, yes, a lot of these are just moldings. It certainly isn't. I'm sure there are custom reveals out there that are much better than this. In fact, I know there are. But when it comes to a mass-produced prop replica, it's not too bad. Go ahead and show you guys the inside of the mask here. Also some details inside there. So I mean, when you actually go to put this on, I did have some flashbacks of that scene at the end of Revenge of the Sith when Anakin becomes Darth Vader in the suit. It really does sort of give you that visual as you're putting the mask on. As I mentioned, here's the stand again. It just fits behind this collar piece, and to be honest with you, I can live without it. Either way, it's not the coolest or not the best stand, but then again, the Black Series units aren't really, even their lightsabers aren't really known for their stands. Alright, so let's start to put this thing together. Getting all the parts put together for the Black Series in order to wear it is pretty simple, but there are some things you need to watch out for. So let's go through the process here. First, start out with the jaw piece. This is the base of the build, if you will, and the next part you'll want to grab with it is the collar. On the back of the jaw, you can see that there are 2 tabs on each arm, and that those are on the lower half of those arms. Now that's something that you should note here, because the same thing can be said for the grooves that are on the collar piece. The collar piece looks the same for the most part, regardless of how you orient it. So you want to make sure that those grooves are on the bottom part of each side of the collar before you go to assemble it. With that in mind, all you have to do is take those grooves and tabs and match them up, starting with one side, and then taking these rubber straps here and mating them with plastic tabs on the jaw piece. Now after I've done one side, what I like to do, because I'm not going to be able to fit my head up through here once everything's put together, is gently stretch the collar piece around my neck, and then blindly, and this is where it gets kind of fun sometimes, find those tabs and lock everything in place. When you go to do that bending motion and then around your neck, be careful. I have heard that some folks have actually broken the plastic tabs on the jaw. They do feel kind of fragile, and I could see where that would happen. I don't know how many people have had that problem, but I know of at least one member of the RPF that had reported that and had to return it the same day he purchased the helmet. So again, guys, be careful. Once you've got everything assembled, it does sit fairly low if you're going to compare this to the original movie prop. That's because the neck down here is quite a bit shorter than that original piece, so it kind of just hangs down. I really wish that Hasbro had lifted that neck up a little bit to bring the jaw a little bit closer to where it should actually be. I don't think it would really interfere with the fitment for even some like kids, but it would add to the realism. It would make the whole thing fit a little bit better for those of us who are adults, and I think mostly adults are probably the ones buying these $100 Black Series helmets anyway. But regardless, here's what it looks like when the bottom half has been assembled. As you can see, the magnets are right here. Those magnets match up with some that are on the mask piece. But before we get to that, I want to show you the straps that hold the mask in place once you've got it on, because they are far improved on this Vader than over the previous Stormtrooper that I'll be honest with you guys, I ripped that construction, that hard helmet or hard hat suspension system out of my Stormtrooper helmets almost right away. I mean, it just wasn't comfortable, couldn't get it in the right place, the helmet wanted to wobble. So the fact that they went with elastic straps here just makes a lot of sense. And there's also a thick pad on the top of the helmet for added comfort. Really, this is extremely well designed when it comes to overall comfort. There's still the same plastic nose piece that we saw on the Stormtroopers, which isn't the most comfortable thing in the world, but really this is a vast improvement over what like the Stormtrooper had. So stretching that elastic over your head, you can then actually just set it here, and I can continue to talk to you guys for a moment. One thing that I have noticed when I go to actually put this whole thing together is that my chin, perhaps it's just the geometry of my chin, forces the jaw into it rather firmly. In order to get the whole thing on, I actually have to pull the jaw out a little bit and then also pull the helmet out forward a little bit and then let it come back onto my face. I don't think that's a problem for everybody. I just think it's the way I must have a large jaw or something, who knows, or a large chin. So not the most comfortable thing in the world, but I'll go ahead and show you how it works. You'll note that once I get everything together here, line up all these magnets and such, that the helmet will play a pretty cool sound.
Got one side. Let's get that second side. You got to find, there's a plastic tab or plastic knob on each side that needs to line up with a hole to line everything up. And once you get it, you got that very cool airlock sounding effect. Now, like I mentioned, my chin is right here in the bottom of the jaw piece. In fact, my nose isn't even touching that nose rest on the mask. I suspect that that's not really mainly just an issue for me, and a lot of folks won't have that, but I honestly never really thought that I had an extra large chin or anything, so there you have it. Not the most comfortable fitment by any stretch. But I will say, again, that suspension system or the elastic just feels great. The padding feels great. The helmet doesn't wobble near as much as the Stormtrooper, and so for that, thumbs up. Finally, let's take the dome and put it on top of everything. Like before, the dome here has magnets on top that engage magnets on the top of the mask. And really, all you have to do is drop it over the top and it locks right in place. Now, and I'm getting a little bit warm in here, the dome will it will wobble, it will come off if you hit it firmly, but the magnets are quite strong. You can turn your head, you can tilt it down, you can look up, and as long as the back of the dome doesn't hit you in the neck back there, it's not going to come off. So kudos to Hasbro for getting this. I mean, this unit is very, very sturdy once it's put together. I'm going to go ahead and start to disassemble it, but before I do, I need to press this button over here on the jaw piece so you can hear the arguably the coolest sound effect. The breathing. It sounds great. It's very loud inside the helmet. I know outside the helmet the small speakers don't necessarily capture the full feel of that Vader breathing, but hey, it's a cool play feature, and for that I'm not complaining. I do wish that it played indefinitely, but again, this is really a toy that happens to be pretty awesome, so no complaints there. Taking the thing off is just the same process in reverse, and when you take the mask off, you're going to get kind of the reverse of that airlock sound that we had before. The helmet opens, and with my messy hair here, then there's one other sound that the helmet plays once everything but the jaw piece has been taken apart. You get that labored breathing, kind of like the end of Return of the Jedi. So guys, very, very cool. Obviously you can see all these really neat effects. Yes, they're not perfect, but for a toy and for a Black Series helmet, they're some of the best. Okay, so it's time for the million-dollar question, especially the one that's been on the mind of Vader enthusiasts for the past several months, and that is the Black Series Darth Vader helmet screen accurate? And the answer to that is no, it isn't. It's not even particularly close when you get down to the details. But I will say it is unmistakably a Vader helmet, and it's quite good for the price. But let's talk about some of those inaccuracies, and then also discuss why this helmet still has it still does resemble some of what we've seen in the films thus far. Let's start with that last point for a moment. If you're going to compare this to any of the Vader helmets that have been used in the films, I would say that you're probably going to find the closest match to something like the helmets from The Empire Strikes Back, or probably even more specifically, Return of the Jedi. Both of those helmets are quite similar, so I'm not going to get into the real differences between the two, but overall, they both had the glossier finish in the face and in the dome, which you've got here. Those were much more highly polished helmets than the A New Hope version. Obviously, we're not going to get into some of the newer helmets, the Rogue One or even the Revenge of the Sith helmets here too much. That's because the Rogue One is kind of a modified A New Hope, so just suffice it to say that this doesn't really look like that one either. And then Revenge of the Sith is really its own beast. So talking about the Empire Strikes Back detailing, and more, like I said, even more specifically, the Return of the Jedi details, you can see that here, the Widow's Peak is mostly flat. It should actually ideally be a little bit flatter than you see here. I know some guys have already taken sandpaper to these to flatten it out a little bit more to better capture that Return of the Jedi look. I don't know if I'll do that here because it's a pretty small upgrade, but I think that some have found that by sanding that off and straightening it out a little bit, you do get a bit of a truer movie appearance. Moving on, you can see that on the underside of the mask, we have the large vent there, as opposed to the small one that would have been on the A New Hope model. Then finally, at a very basic analysis here, we've got the smoky black/gray lenses on the mask, as opposed to the amber or reddish ones from A New Hope. So you can see that at a very, very general level, this helmet sort of kind of looks like something from Return of the Jedi. That being said, it still has a long way to go before anybody's going to consider it a proper replica for that film. So let's talk a little bit about the inaccuracies. First off, the dome, and I'm going to take it off here and hopefully we don't drop everything. Boom. And now I can move this stand out of the way. So that's a balancing act I don't really want to play with right now. The dome is undersized. Ideally, this dome should be about 1.5 inches to maybe even 2 inches taller. And then it should be lengthened towards the bottom. Also, because this is injection molded plastic and it's one piece of injection molded ABS, they weren't able to add the rolled edges on the helmet to give it a look of depth, and I think that's probably the most telling feature here, is that this helmet looks like plastic. Or the dome looks like plastic because it doesn't have those rolled edges and it does flex quite a bit, in part because of that. So the dome, I think, is probably being undersized, missing some of those details. Another thing I could point out here is that the ridge at the top is a little bit soft in terms of the edges. So there you go. You know, it's not the most accurate dome, and I think the dome is part of what makes this thing a little bit less accurate than some folks would like. Setting that aside for a moment, the mask is quite good in comparison. The overall shape is reasonably good, but again, we'll start with the bottom here. And I mentioned this before, but the neck is too short. It should be another 1.5 to 2 inches longer there. And what that does on the original prop is it allows it to sit on Vader's chest armor properly, so you don't have like a droopy helmet, or the armor fits together much better because it has the neck is longer in the original helmet. Now most people aren't going to be wearing that armor with this helmet, but not having the extension on the neck means that, like I showed you in the fitment, it means that the jaw sits pretty low. So I think that that's a missed opportunity for Hasbro there, to be honest with you guys. But again, I'm not going to complain too much about a $100 helmet. Again, we've got that large vent there for the mouth, and you can see the detailing carrying on there. The grills, again, aren't accurate, but then again, they're not metal, so they're plastic. I'm not going to get too bent out of shape there. The tusks are plastic and molded as well. I wish these were aluminum or some form of I don't even care if it's pot metal or anything. I wish that they were metal because it is a simple detail. As it stands, I think there are going to be some folks replacing these. One thing to note is that they are properly spaced. They're 108 millimeters apart, and that may seem like a really, really specific detail, but that matches the measurement between the tusks on the EFX precision cast replica that is, by most standards, and really in all the important ways, is screen accurate. It's screen accurate from a sizing standpoint, even though it has been cleaned up a little bit. So
having that spacing correct between the tusks is pretty impressive. That being said, I think that the nose is a little bit short here, because this looks more like an obtuse triangle than the more isosceles look that you get with the original prop. Again, guys, I'm sorry, that's not bringing out a geometry lesson here, but I think that that's just based on my view of this helmet. Again, another slight inaccuracy, not huge, but it does contribute to the overall look that this face is wider. The cheeks are at a slightly different angle than you would see on the original prop, which, like I said, this face does look wide. That's something that I've noticed when I've got the dome on, and I started to kind of wonder, is it because it's undersized? But no, when I looked at this mask as compared to some of the original props, even without the domes attached, there are some differences in the geometry of the cheeks that just make it look kind of chubby. Another small detail worth noting is that the silver in the nose should go up around this rim as well. It doesn't here, and so it's an easy fix, and I'll probably whip out the paint as soon as this review is over, but I wanted to show you guys that that too is not quite accurate. As far as the detailing at the top of the helmet goes, like there might be some smaller, and I guess this does apply to the inside of the helmet as well. There are some things that are missing here. Some of these parts aren't painted the correct colors, and some are maybe missing entirely. But overall, I think I'm not complaining about this at all, because the alternative with some of the higher end props is simply not to have that at all. You've just got a smooth dome. So this looks great when it's sitting there, and I think there are a lot of opportunities for display featuring these reveal pieces. So, and that same thing goes for the inside. Finally, and I know I'm probably missing some things here, but finally, the last thing, and one of the most significant details that's missing on this helmet from the original screen used prop is the lack of gunmetal painting. Some of you probably aren't aware, but the Darth Vader helmet in the films is not all black. That's because the cameras of the day wouldn't pick up an all black helmet all that well. The light would just kind of get soaked up by that black, and you wouldn't see this detailing in the cheeks and on the face that we've got here. So this is an all black helmet. On the original prop, this cheek, most of this up here, the entire forehead of the mask, and the neck would all be a dark gunmetal color to give it a little bit of contrast from the remaining black pieces on the helmet and the black dome. So it's another missing detail. I think that Hasbro was smart not to include that, because I can only imagine what folks would say when they opened this up and saw this very bizarre looking paint job. Those who weren't Vader fans would probably be appalled by what they had seen. Those of us who know better would have loved it, but I digress. This is an easy change to make, and again, like the nose piece, I'll probably be doing that as soon as this is over. So let's talk some final thoughts. What works for me with this helmet and what doesn't? Obviously, I would like to have seen it be a bit more accurate. There are some small changes that Hasbro could have made to make this a more accurate piece. There's no doubt about it. I think that we're probably the choice to go with an undersized dome had as much to do with packaging concerns and getting it into a box that's roughly the same size as the previous Black Series boxes than anything, although they probably also didn't want smaller people, because we can't all be David Prowse. They probably wanted smaller people to have this helmet and not look like a total bobblehead. It's already a large piece, already looks pretty big on most people's heads, so that was probably part of it, along with the packaging concerns. The overall accuracy of the helmet isn't too bad. There are some geometry type changes I would have liked to have seen made to the mask so it didn't look so chubby when everything was put together, but again, I think that is in part to blame for the dome, but again, not entirely. So aside from those, the final thing, and I don't really care about this stand, guys. I'm going to be replacing this with my own stand. I don't think it shows off the helmet all that well, but I'm not going to get into that too much here. The final thing for me, and I guess it's two things. the helmet doesn't fit me all that well. Although that's pretty. It's an objective observation, but again, it's subjective too, because that's my opinion. It's how it fits me, and I think that there are a lot of people. I've not heard nearly as many complaints about fitment with this as I have with even some of the others. So I'm sure that that's mostly just the way my chin jabs into that jaw piece, and when you factor in a little bit of a beard with that, it's just not all that comfortable. The other thing are the sounds. So the sounds, and it's a great segue. Let's talk about what I dislike about the sounds before moving into what I like about the sounds and the rest of the helmet. What I dislike. First off, you don't have the full loop when you play that breathing. Again, am I nitpicking? Am I asking for too much in a $100 Vader helmet? Probably. The other thing is the sound quality. It's not great. It doesn't really sound like, you don't get that, that real high-pitched, high-end sound that you get with that airlock effect that you do in the film. Again, though, we're talking about a small speaker in here, and that's kind of just how it goes. Finally, another point with the sound is there's no real way to turn it off. So when I go to put this helmet together, there's no switch here for me to turn it off. As long as batteries are in here, and it uses 2 AAA batteries, by the way. As long as 2 AAA batteries are inserted into that jaw piece, it's active all the time. There's no safety on this thing. It's ready to rock. That being said, the sounds are very cool, and they are pretty varied. You have the airlock sounds in both directions. You have the labored breathing, and then you have the standard breathing. All of that is very, very cool, and it really does capture what the Black Series helmets are all about. They've got that playability value, and then they also are reasonably accurate. It's very, very good display pieces, I might add. So, can't really complain too much about that on the whole. What do I like about the helmet? One, coming back to that display piece. It makes a very good display piece, especially if you're not a major stickler for Vader accuracy. It looks great. It looks great on my shelf in my theater, and I'm not going to complain too much about that. Does it make me want a more expensive, higher end, more accurate replica? Yeah, a little bit. But you know what? This is a decent stand-in for the time being, and I can't complain about that. It's a great helmet overall for somebody who wants to hand this to their kids if they have, maybe you have a more expensive replica that you don't want, kids playing with. This is a decent alternative, something to let them beat up on a little bit, and they're not going to break it. It's solid ABS. It's heavy. I don't have a weight for you right now, but I'm telling you guys, it's heavier than most of the more accurate, more expensive ones out there on the market. So I would not have any concerns about letting kids beat up on this, and I think they'd have a lot of fun. So, on the whole, it's a fantastic helmet. I would say that it is probably the weakest of the Black Series helmets, particularly on that accuracy point, because the Stormtrooper, the Kylo Ren, and the Poe Dameron helmets were just, they were so visually, they just really captured what they were looking to do. They were quite accurate with very little modification. This does stray from that a little bit when you're looking at that pure accuracy. But again, guys, it's a $100 helmet, and it's really, really fantastic for that price. If you guys have any questions about this helmet or would like to know more, be sure to post those in the comments. I'll try to get to those as many of those as I can. Sometimes it's a little bit tough for me, but like I said, I will do my best to get to those and answer anything you guys have or anything you're wondering about this helmet. If you like this video or looking forward to or would like to see some of my lightsaber content that I do more frequently on the channel, be sure to subscribe and give this a like and come back for more of that. Thanks guys for watching.